TTDS, the god of catalysts, the mother of all creation. Thrilling tales of dragon slayers. This frickin' 3-star catalyst is absolutely busted. It's so broken, in fact, that it forced Teyvat's population into TTDS slavery. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTube. It's your Slime King, Dejima Man, and welcome to another video. This was the birth of the TTDS slave. Players were so starved for damage, and yet artifact RNG had forsaken them. With each new iteration of the Abyss, they were always reminded of how inadequate they were. For a measly 600 Primo Gems every 2 weeks, people struggled as they clawed their way to the bottom of the Spiral Abyss. And the perfect driver to fund this irrational drive was inhumane labor. The worth of a character was solely dictated by their capability to use TTDS. This is the ugly truth of Genshin Impact. TTDS slaves, whether you like it or not, are here to stay, and no matter how bad you feel for these catalyst users, you will work them and grind them down to the dust. They sit level 20 in your party queue, wondering if they will ever reach the light of ascension. They never will, because they are merely slaves to the TTDS and the hyper carry they funnel their buffs to. TTDS is a 3-star catalyst that has 401 base attack and 35.2% HP substat. However, what makes it so good is its passive, Heritage. When switching characters, the new character taking the field has their attack increased by 48% for 10 seconds. This effect can only occur once every 20 seconds. This weapon has been in the game since patch 1.0, and I bet most players already know just how good this weapon is. But I bet there are an equal number of players who take this weapon for granted. I've seen this catalyst foddered many times, so this is a reminder. Always keep at least 2 TTDS, 1 for each team. By virtue as a 3-star catalyst, it can easily be foddered by some early game players and some late game players alike. That is the gravest sin in all of Genshin Impact. With all that talk praising up this 3-star catalyst, why is it so good then? It's actually really simple. Its passive gives a chunky 48% attack for 10 seconds. But the cooldown is 20 seconds, you say. Uptime of that buff is very important, you say. So, why is this effect so good even if it has a 10-second downtime? Well, that is simply because of the mechanic called snapshotting. Now I should be putting my trust into all of you that you already know what this means by now. But here's a quick refresher anyway. Snapshotting refers to being able to capture a buff for the duration of a burster skill. It's easier to mention those who cannot snapshot their abilities than it is to explain it. Notably, Sincho, Yaimiko, and Eula cannot snapshot. With that being said, snapshotting basically allows you to abuse the TTDS buff to its limit. Its downtime becomes inconsequential in most comps. As for the cooldown of 20 seconds, well, most rotations, when played well, usually range from 18 seconds to 22 seconds anyway. This means that you'll almost always have the TTDS buff ready for the next rotation. Wait, hold up. Aren't attack buffs not as good as damage percent buffs or crit buffs? A lot of people seem to not understand the value of attack percent buffs. Of course, if you are using Bennett in your team, attack will be oversaturated. However, in freeze teams, in Sukokomon, or in general, any team that doesn't run a Bennett or Sarah, that 48% attack is immense. Look, not everyone is running 5-star weapons and god-rolled artifacts with both attack percent and crit on subs. If you're wondering why your 1300 attack Shangling, your 1500 attack Beidou, or your 1700 attack Ayaka isn't doing any damage, then probably TTDS would provide a great solution to this. Now let's look at why it makes all other catalysts obsolete. Every single time a new catalyst gets released, whether that be Memory of Dust, Everlasting Pega, or Kagoras Verity, it will not matter what these catalysts are capable of. For us to understand this, let's look at what the catalyst users in this game do. Currently, almost all the catalysts in this game fit into a support or buffing slot. In that sense, it's easier to talk about the DPS catalyst users first. Yae Miko, Ningguang, Klee, and Yanfei. Is there something in common with these units? Yes. Yes, there is. They are all DPSs that are rarely used in the game, aside from whales and the true simps out there that dedicate their hearts to their waifus. These units are considered not as good as the other DPS options, and at best, they require significantly more investment to clear the abyss. This means that no matter how good a catalyst is for damage, there is no unit currently in Genshin Impact that can make use of it. Therefore, most players favor these catalyst users to become buffers instead. It also doesn't help that most catalyst users like Mona, Kokomi, and Barbara, and Sucrose fit that support role so well that it's not hard to see why the TTDS becomes the top dog. And thus, TTDS slaves become the staple in every party. You can use a level 20 Barbara, Yanfei, Kokomi, Lisa, and even a C2 Klee to abuse TTDS. Since the sole role of a TTDS slave is to come on field, use their abilities, and funnel the buff to your main carry, there is literally no investment needed to drag a slave into your party. The TTDS slave market is booming, but there are downsides to it, as is with everything in Genshin Impact. Rotations become harder to play by virtue of having to always keep in mind that you have to switch into your TTDS slave, then to your main carry every single time. If you forget to do this, that results in a substantial DPS loss. There are also rotations that do not allow for smooth transitions to your main carry. For example, if you are running a team composed of Kokomi, Yae, Fischl, and Kazuha, Kokomi would be holding TTDS, and you'd want to be buffing Yae Miko. However, since you want to get the buffs from Kazuha first, what ends up happening is you end up switching back to Yae first to get the buff, then to Kazuha to get his buff, then back to Yae. Now that extends the rotation, because normally you'd want to go Yae to Kokomi to Kazuha to Fischl, then back to Yae to get all the buffs for all your units. This makes some rotations finicky, and in some teams like this, you'd have to think about how to fit TTDS perfectly into those rotations. However, for how efficient it is to have at least one TTDS slave in your party, it becomes a no-brainer to always have one in your team. Its resource efficiency combined with how well it actually works in your rotations makes this 3-star catalyst one of the best weapons in the game. There is no debate. TTDS is busted. The only question I can ask you is, are you making the most of this catalyst? Tell me down in the comments below or come at me at twitch.tv/ThejimaMan where I stream Genshin almost every day. This is our parting. Farewell.